Will higher property expenses crush landlords? Learn about what you've got to do to avoid getting crunched. After a high tide of inflation, we've all surely enjoyed the splash of both higher property prices and rents, but let's look at the property expenses that are hitting real estate investors like a rogue wave and what you must specifically do about it in order to survive. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold, Get Rich Education founder, Forbes Real Estate Council member, best-selling author, and longtime real estate investor. What is your expense that increased the most the past 12 months? Well, this rental investor survey asked single-family landlords that very question. As you can see here, it is fast rising insurance premiums, with half of respondents citing it as their biggest expense increase item. All right, well, that's hardly a new development, but what are you actually doing about it? That's what we'll get into. Next most was the increase in property tax, with 27% of respondents citing that. Now, that's mostly a reflection of higher property values and their consequent tax assessments, and 235 single-family landlords completed this survey. Again, these numbers are the percentage of landlords that cite the greatest expense increase in that line item, not the actual rate of increase in that item. Now, the rate of increase in homeowners insurance costs was roughly 10 to 12% nationally last year. That's according to the Insurance Information Institute. And the top two reasons for this are more severe storms and higher replacement costs. The good news is that further rate increases are cooling off though. All right, but still, what exactly are you to do as a rental property owner that's stuck with higher property insurance bills? Well, I've got a great answer here. You pass that expense along to your tenant with a rent increase, and then others can deal with what happens downstream. I'll tell you exactly how shortly, but this wave of inflation, it flows like a river from reinsurer to insurer to property owner to the increased rent to the tenant wage to the employer, and then the employer hikes prices on the consumer. But no watered down returns for you. And of course, inflation's headwaters are sourced with the government. Inflation means an expansion of the money supply. You and your tenant are merely two ports along the river. Don't let the expense water dam up and flood you. And the written reason that you give your tenant for the increase is, drum roll, higher insurance costs. Yeah, that's it. There's no need to be inventive here. Honesty is the best raft. And come on now, this remorseless geography degree holder has got to let loose with something like river reference types from time to time. In fact, take a look at this. This is a regional breakdown with the national number on the bottom. The same survey showed that 76% of single-family landlords expect to reach high water marks and raise the rent over the next 12 months, including 35% who say the rent increase will be over 4%. Planned rent increases of 1% to 7% are most common. And look, you didn't get into real estate to subsidize others' living expenses. There is absolutely nothing unethical about adjusting to market level rent, and rent hikes are like a lock lifting your ship through the Panama Canal. All right, so what to make of all this? Gauging overall investor sentiment here as we head later into the 2020s decade. I mean, really, just what's the landlord temperature? Expenses are up, higher rents follow, and last quarter home values increased in almost 90% of U.S. metro markets, and I personally expect the home price appreciation to continue. But how do single-family landlords in this same survey feel? How do they feel? Not just me. Well, 60% of them say they'll buy at least one investment property over the next 12 months. Here's the breakdown by region with, again, the national figures on the bottom bar. Quite a bit of optimism in the Midwest, Northeast, and South. Really, single-family landlords are optimistic everywhere except out west. And this makes sense. Cash flows are less lucrative in the West because prices have long outpaced rents. And the survey really shows that most aren't wildly bullish or excessively bearish on the real estate market. They expect it to stay balanced. Many plan to buy properties, raise rents, expect a 4% home price appreciation rate, and that is another finding from the survey, about 4%, and they anticipate falling interest rates. Now, personally, I often disagree with what the masses think. Contrarians to the mainstream are often profiteers, but in this case, I guess I'm more agreeable with the survey respondents than a perfectly brewed cup of coffee in the morning. And well, maybe that's because single-family landlords, the very people surveyed, aren't mainstream. So the housing market is actually pretty normal in most every significant way now, except for, of course, the ongoing lack of housing inventory and the affordability challenges for first-time homebuyers. And you know, even normal times can be thrilling for a real estate investor when you achieve a 40% plus total rate of return from how real estate pays 5 ways. Yes, if you're new here, I know that sounds like an unachievable return with a bunch of risk, but 40% plus actually is realistic when you understand your 5 simultaneous profit sources with income-producing property. I mean, when someone asks why you invest in real estate, you could just hold up 5 fingers. The broader economy shows a lot of signs of normalcy too: GDP growth, consumer spending, unemployment, and the inflation rate, but the sad exception here is the widening gap between the wealthy and the poor. I guess that more people charter yachts, and yet others increasingly pour Mountain Dew on their Fruit Loops for breakfast. Now, complete uncertainty never disappears, but after disruptions from COVID, high inflation, and new wars, a lot of people see calmer times ahead. Elections matter, but some people seem more concerned about who the next president will be than the parent of a Sephora-obsessed teen. Presidential elections aren't known to rock the real estate market, and actually history shows that the more sensitive stock market is only temporarily affected by an election. You know, some things out there, like when liquid death thrives from hawking wildly overpriced water in a can, sometimes I wonder just how bad can the economy be? The bottom line here is that today most single-family investors are meeting higher insurance expenses with rent increases, and they want to buy more income property over the next 12 months. Now, I gave you one tip about how to raise the rent there, but if you're a newer income property owner or you simply harbor some lingering trepidation about pushing up rents, this can really help you out. I discuss my top ways on how you can raise the rent while keeping your tenants happy at the same time, and also what to never say to a tenant. You can watch that right here.